Welcome back, Arthur here, with part 0 of the Wurm modding series. This is going to be a series where I'll take you step by step through the process of making your own Wurm mod. And this video is about making your own Wurm model and getting it into the game, or, well, not getting it into the game today, but making the model so that it works, so we can add it to the game later. As we are stepping through all the steps of making a mod, this will also include adding a custom item, and for that we are going to need a custom model. You can, of course, skip this video. That's why I labeled it part 0, basically, because you can still code along on the videos where it's about making the item and have it work. It will work without a model, but just for completeness sake, this will be the first part. When you're modding, generally you probably have an idea that you write down somewhere, and then if it's an item that you're adding, you will probably also need a model for it, as you want your players to not look at the question mark back or something like that. Okay, so for this series, the idea is to make a ice cube that can remove burn wounds, and maybe we'll add other functionality to it. So starting out with Blender here, we just do a new file general. I'll link all the tools that I use down in the description box, so you can basically have the same tools that I use here. All right, so focusing on our ice cube, get it? Not much work to do here. We just need a cube, but as you can see, this cube is perfectly in the center of this world coordinate grid. That would mean it would only stick out of the ground for the half of it. So we need to change that, and there's a little bit of trickery involved, which I use during making models in Wurm. So of course you could just select this cube, hit G, and then just, you know, get it up. But as you can see, you can fix it to a axis as well, but you will always have the trouble of not being quite able to identify if it's here on the ground or not at this moment. I mean, you can see here there's a location somewhat, but if we set that to null, it will go back to where it was, because the origin of the block is now at 0 meters. I mean, okay, this cube, I don't know how big it is. It's probably 2 meters in size, so you could calculate that and just say it's 1 meter. That should be fine for Wurm, but you know. So we will take our cube and we will go into the edit mode so that we can see all the vertices, so the singular dots basically. And then we will go to select mode, and so this is up here, this is vertices select mode, this is edge select mode, as you can see, and this is face select mode, as you can see. So probably what I'm going to do is go to the edge select mode, then hit select that edge here, and oh, that's not what I wanted to do. And then I right click and select subdivide, and now you can see this edge basically has turned into 2 parts, but unfortunately it doesn't have any vertex to select. So yeah, so we go back to vertex mode, select these 4 vertices, and then we subdivide. So, and as you can see, you have these new vertices here. There might be a more elegant solution here, but this is how I'm doing it, and I think it's not too bad to have these uh, now 3 additional faces. But anyway, we're gonna hit Shift and S, and then we will say cursor to selected. So now this means, aha, this cursor or the 3D cursor now is basically stuck to this vertex. And now we go back to object mode, and then we say set origin to 3D cursor. And now you see there is this yellow dot that moved down, and this is now the object origin. And you can see here in this, it changed the Z coordinate, which is now at -1 meter. And now we can hit that to 0 meters. And now we are exactly on the ground. So this is how I get my objects to be perfectly on the ground. You don't have to do it that way. You can, again, just go by moving it. But yeah, I'm just doing it that way. So now I know that my cube is snug to the ground, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, now we've got that cube, and as you can see, it is 1 by 1, 2 by 2 by 2 meters, and I want to scale that down a little bit. So as you can see here, if I select this and then scale, that these values on the right side here get changed. So anyway, I can just put 0.5 in here, 0.5 in here, and 0.5 in here. And because the origin of the object is on the Z-axis, this now still is snug to the ground, which is nice. If we add another cube here, that one, which has its origin in the center, if we compare that, just put it there and scale that down, you see here, it's now floating. And our cube is not doing it because its origin is on the ground. So that's why we move the origin point as well. Okay, so now we've got an ice cube that is 1 by 1 by 1 meters. You can look at the exact dimensions of your object. By the way, if you click here on this hidden menu arrow, and then you can see here on dimensions how big it is. So here you can also scale it up and down. But yeah, I don't know. This is little hidden menu. Okay, so we've got the ice cube. Of course, now we gotta make it look like an ice cube. So I'm gonna go very, very simple here. We are just going to go to Google, and then we say free ice texture. Okay, I found this ice texture here by Hans Isaacson. So I'll put the link down in description if you want to work with this texture. I found it on Unsplash. And this is what we're gonna use. So I've downloaded the picture, and let's see. Right, so this picture is not quite the shape we need, since Wurm needs texture files that are squared, and this is not squared. So we're going to open this with Gimp. I'm just gonna keep the images color scale there. And now we just say picture and not scale the picture. I'm just gonna make the canvas smaller here. So do like this. And now basically Gimp asks me which parts I want to keep. And since we're going to make a cube, it should like be a little bit continuous, like so. This might look ugly, but this is gonna just be a quick video. Okay, so this already is our texture here. And also what Wurm wants or likes to is to have textures in a power of 2. So let's do like, now we scale and now we say 2048 pixel, maybe. That's still quite a lot of resolution. You could scale that down to 512 or whatever you want to. At the moment, this is 110 megabytes. So thinking about having the game not chuck as hard, you could scale that down to 512 and it still looks pretty okay to me. Okay, so an ice block is also transparent, so we now need to add a little bit of transparency here in Gimp. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our texture and then we say add alpha channel. And if you don't want to make a transparent texture, you don't have to do this, right? You can keep it opaque. So add alpha channel, and then basically what you do is you select all of your picture, and then you whip out the eraser, and then you basically make it just very large, larger than your actual picture, and give it the hardness of 100% and the pressure of 100%, but a lower opacity, I guess. And so basically now I've got a eraser with 27.9, so let's say 28% opacity, which means after applying this, the picture is now 28% transparent, if that makes sense. So 72% of the original opacity stay over. So basically you have to kind of say, okay, if I want it to be 80% opacity, you have to set this to 20. I click once and you see the transparency is applied, and then you can see here the checkerboard pattern, which shows you that there is some kind of transparency going on. It varies from texture to texture based on how much contrast there is and which color palette is used, but generally you will have to toy around with this again. So you see there is a lot of toying around, getting a feeling for what goes and what goes not. So I hope this will work later. We'll see. If our object is not showing up, then it was too transparent. So now that we've got a transparent picture, we're gonna export it. And I'm just gonna make a new folder here on my desktop, I guess. And I call that Wurm modding tutorial. Okay, and in there, we're gonna save this file as DDS file, which is important. I mean, you can keep it as JPEG or as PNG, but for transparency reasons, you should save it as a DDS file. Thanks to XSplit for figuring that out. But of course, the file ending of your textures is your choice. But commonly, you might already know DDS files being used for texturing stuff. Okay, so we hit export here. And on the compression, we have to choose BC3DXT5. And we are going to generate bitmaps. And that's it. Just hit OK. And it was exported. So let me see how big is the texture. Yeah, it's only 341 kilobytes now. Good. All right. So we made our texture, and now we go back to Blender, and now we want to apply the texture to our model. So we select our entire model, so in object mode, and then we go here to this little ball, says material, and it already has a standard material. If it doesn't have a material, you can just create one with the plus sign here. Okay, so this is just called material. I'll call this surface just for the sake of calling it something. And then you want to go to edit mode, select everything. So be careful, be mindful. You see here, this did not select everything. You can go here by faces, but you see Blender will only select stuff that you are currently seeing. You could press A on your keyboard, which will select all faces or vertices depending on what mode you're using. And yeah, so again, we are selecting all of our surfaces here, and then we hit select this material here, and then we say assign. So now each of these faces has the ice cube texture assigned to it. Might be a problem down here because that's 4 faces, so maybe that is then 4 times the ice texture, but as we subdivide it, we can always unsubdivide again. So let's just see how it turns out. To actually add the texture, we have to leave this window, and you can click up here, and then you say shader editor, and it already has object mode, and it works for every face that you assign this material to, which we already did. And then you have here these nodes, I guess, that you can drag around. So yeah, this is basically your material. And instead of a base color, which we could set to red, just for looking at it. And now you say, hey, it's still gray. Yeah, to look at your shader, you have to go here and select shaded. So this is how your object looks because we set it to red. Okay. So you could just use a color here. You can also paint on it, but I'm not an artistic person. I'm more like an autistic person. So yeah, painting or art in general is not really my strong suit, I guess. Anyway, we're gonna add a texture and an image texture, and you see you have a new glob on your mouse cursor, and we just stick that here, and then we say open wherever you saved your DDS file, open that image. Now that's in here, and now we connect the color to the base color here. And then if you go back to the 3D viewport, shaded view, you'll see that our ice cube now has this texture on it. And as you can see, it also, every face has a different part of the picture. But this is continuous down here, so I guess Blender was smart about it. You could, if you wanted to, go to the UV editor, and now there you can see your texture file. And if we go back to the 3D viewport, I'll select these three faces here. And then if you see here, okay, go to the UV editor. Those are the three faces here. So you can technically now select them in here and move them around. And then this face, well, it's still connected because I selected, right? But I could move everything around and then the texture would change on all of those. So if I hit Control C, I don't know if the change is going to be apparent, but yeah. You can also look at it in a shaded mode. But again, Blender doesn't show transparency. We could try and go to the shader editor here and connect alpha of our texture to the alpha of our shader and go back to the 3D viewport. But as you can see, it's not really shaded here, but it will be shaded in game later. Or maybe it's not transparent enough, but generally transparency will not be shown here in Blender. I think. I'm not 100% sure of that. All right, so now this is our object, and I should have saved way earlier, but let's also save that here to desktop. Wurm modding tutorial, ice cube, blend. So we've got that, and we will now export it as a OBJ model, basically. So the blend file that you're making is just like a Photoshop file. It remembers what you've selected, what you did, your undo history. But to actually get the model, you have to export it as one of the model formats, which could be Collada or OBJ. Or you use the plugin from Toda, and you can actually export as one model right away. But we're firing here with onboard stuff, so that's that. So for exporting settings, you will want the Z-axis as a forward axis, the up axis as Y. You could scale up and down here, but we already scaled. You have to triangulate the mesh because apparently Wurm works best with triangles. This is only reflecting what I've learned, so don't pin me down on that. And we're going to export material groups, and I think this is all we need. So let's see, and we're going to export it to Wurm modding tutorial. Boop. Okay, so if everything went well, we will be seeing a textured cube now, because in Windows there's a 3D viewer you can use to look at your models. So let's take a look. Okay, so the ice cube is there, so that is okay. Keep in mind that also the Windows object viewer will not really show transparency. Maybe the one model viewer will do, but we'll see. So we're almost done here. Now we have an OBJ object, but we of course will need a WOM file, so Wurm model. Feel free to actually move around the faces of the cube here so that the texture actually fits to each other nicely. So here it fits. This might fit. This fits as well. But this here is weird. See, so this face is not really fitting, but this is just a proof of concept here. All right. So to turn a OBJ model into a WOM file, we will need a WOM-Converter, which is made by BDU. So thank you, BDU, for making that tool. Upon opening it, you'll be greeted with a file select screen. So now you just go to where you put your OBJ file and hit open, and it will tell you if everything went okay here. And I think it did. And it said here, file converted. And now we can exit it. And we can see here, we have a WOM file now. So this is WOM model viewer, which was made by Warlander. And we can here select our model. And then we go to our folder here. And then we'll take our Ice Cube WOM. And if that loads gracefully, you can already guess that it works. Because if that's loading your WOM file, then it should also work in game. So I can use this tool to check if my models will show up in game. Sometimes it doesn't show up in the WOM model viewer. That doesn't mean it won't show up in game. But if it shows up in the WOM model viewer, it will definitely show up in the game as well. Also, keep in mind, transparency, again, won't show in the WOM model viewer, apparently. So I'll probably add this model to the game somewhere and just put a picture in the end to see how transparent it is. But yeah, this concludes part 0. These are all the basic steps how to make your own model, and this is what we will be working with. Of course, getting more complex models to work then will be a little bit more complex, who would have thought, but the steps are staying about the same. Model it out in Blender, look for textures, use the UV editor to use the shader editor to apply your textures to your model. Doesn't have to be all in one file. You can have 4, 5, 10 files, 10 texture files for your model, and then just select the faces and apply different materials with different textures. Or you can select the entire object and have only one material and then use the UV editor, the other page that we were using, to basically move the selected faces across your texture there and to basically apply a texture to a face. But yeah, generally I look for free models online, I'm gonna be honest, and then I'm just gonna dumb them down and see how it works. But yeah, this is how to make a simple model for Wurm. If you have any questions, feel free to join the modding Discord, which is also down below in the description. And of course, you can comment here or hit me up anytime if you have any questions. All right, so I'll see you in the next part where we'll be making our custom item, and hopefully it's transparent, so image incoming. All right, have a nice day, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.